Welcome back into NFL Daily Live once again. I am Tom Downey, producer Aiden behind the scenes on today's show. We'll go through all the latest around the NFL. Week 4 wrapping up, Week 5 getting going on Thursday. I do like how there's like a 2-day break and then we get more football. It's always entertaining. And soon as we get into October, November, we'll get like college football on those days and it's even better. All right, first comment for you guys to respond to. Will Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach, be the first NFL head coach fired this year? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. We'll give some shout outs as these flow in. My vibes say yes, that this is what ends up happening here. He has overtaken Mike McDaniel as the favorite to be the first head coach fired. Kellen Moore is also plus 250, which they just made him the guy. It's not going to be an in-season hiring unless we get to Week 12 and there's no wins, in which case might get a little bit dicey there. Still decently high for Mike McDaniel, Brian Dable, Dave Canales a little bit further down, but we'll see how things play out there. Will he be the first head coach fired? Y for yes, N for no. The Iron Patriot says yes. Shelley says yes. My gut also says yes. We'll spend some time on this. All the concerns you had about bringing Brian Callahan back as the head coach, if you're a Titans fan or just a Titans observer, kind of coming true. You have risked I call it the Bears path of new head coach, new quarterback, new head coach, new quarterback, new GM, never getting on the same timeline. That is what is always concerning. So it's a little bit easier at times when it's the GM and the quarterback coming in at the same time, but it's unideal for Tennessee. We'll go more in depth on that and the concerns I have in a little bit. But I also want to talk about Jaxson Dart today as the rookie quarterback got the start against the Chargers, helping the Giants win to, I thought, a pretty impressive performance relative to expectations and the challenge and all of that stuff. By no means perfect. I want you guys to grade Dart against the Chargers. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. How do you think Dart fared against LA? I don't want to give away the entire portion of the show we'll discuss on him. There were definitely some good things. Definitely some elements that I'm like, okay, maybe you have to be a little bit better, but it's also your first start against a good team. Like I'm not going to, grade overly harsh. I think it's at least a B. It's first rookie start and you won. Like, isn't that what you want? There's still plenty of individual play I think has to be better. Again, we'll discuss some of that on today's show. But grade Jaxson Dart against the Chargers, A, B, C, D, or F. All right, who you got on Thursday Night Football? 4 for the 49ers, R for the Rams. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. 4 for the 49ers, R for the Rams. I think this should be a pretty good matchup between these two teams. It's a key game in the NFC West. I think it would be better if the Niners were healthy. They seem to just be absolutely plagued by injuries right now. And my conspiracy theory of, well, not even a theory, it's kind of a joke, of the Niners are sacrificial lambing everyone and keeping Christian McCaffrey healthy with some weird bloodletting ritual, dark magic. Actually maybe right, they're all banged up, like everybody. Kind of like the Ravens on defense. You go to that Niners offense, start throwing darts onto the depth chart, you're going to hit an injured guy. It's insane. So who they got? R for the Rams, 4 for the 49ers. I have been impressed by the Rams. They honestly should be undefeated. If they had not gotten a kit blocked, not struggled in the red zone a couple times against the Eagles, they could be in a really, really good spot. All right, so if you guys want your team to win their next game this upcoming week, show it by liking the video. Likes do equal luck here on NFL Daily and Chat Sports. So we got the data to prove it, more so for team channels, but it's also worth trying if you're just a general NFL fan. Of course, you probably have a favorite team. So send the good vibes their way and like the video, please, and thank you. Coming up on today's show, NFL news and rumors. We will have a mailbag as well. So if you want your question answered, use hashtag NFL or Super Chat to skip the show, skip that line altogether. You are guaranteed to get on. Doesn't have to be a question, by the way. I do like having just a more free-flowing conversation. Like, if you have thoughts, ideas, concerns, whatever it is on the NFL, get them in via hashtag NFL like Chua Lore did. So get your questions in with that hashtag NFL, or else producer Aiden just cannot find your questions. It gets buried by everything else and it won't pull properly. We will also have a CBS Sports mock draft for you guys on today's show. So get your questions in via hashtag NFL. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. If you guys enjoy our NFL videos, help us out by sharing this one. I believe with the structure of the day, this particular video will not be getting a push notification. So help us out. Share today's video on social media, please, and thank you. Coming out of Week 4, we're going to discuss some of the bigger NFL rumors and news items. First up, I think it is a matter of when, not if, the Titans pull the trigger on dumping Brian Callahan as their head coach. It just hasn't been good this year. All the positive vibes of, okay, we got Cam Ward, we're building in the right direction, new GM. It's been bad in Tennessee. And I think there are some, not just the wins and losses, but how Tennessee is getting there, I think should raise red flags. Week 1, a narrow loss against the Broncos. Okay, that's a road game. Denver's pretty good. It was 8 points. That's one score. Okay, that's not the end of the world. Week 2. All right, the Rams are a good football team. You lose 33-19. Okay, so we're up to double digits, but, that's not that bad. Week 3, you get blown out by the Colts, who have been impressive this year, but still. And then week 4, you get shut out and blanked by the Houston Texans, who haven't been that good this year either. It's getting worse each week in Tennessee. And I don't see a lot of signs of it's suddenly going to get better. When you give up the play calling as the offensive mind, like games into your second season, that's not a good sign. He kind of implied that he didn't want to give up the play calling because he was asked if he had regrets. He's like, no, I don't have any regrets about the way he called plays. Then why'd you give it up? Kind of felt like it was a mandate from the top. The Cam Ward hasn't been that good. The receivers aren't getting open. You have Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach, and it's still not gelling, despite investing in it a decent amount. The vibes are bad in Tennessee. That concerns me. The whole point of having Brian Callahan as your head coach is to help maximize the young QB. And this is the danger of bottoming out, getting the 1 overall pick, taking a quarterback with a head coach who's on the hot seat. Well, if this doesn't work, you're kind of setting up Cam Ward for failure. Where, okay, he's got a new head coach, new offensive system, new play caller. If they've already gone through 2 play callers in his first 4 games as a quarterback, it's not good. I am anxious about this. So will Brian Callahan be the first head coach fired? Y for yes, N for no. Mike McDaniel maybe in the conversation, but at least his Dolphins beat the Jets. Let me know in the comment section, the pinned comment of today's show. Zach Taylor could be another name that maybe ends up being on the hot seat in Cincinnati / already is on the hot seat. I think the vibes are also really bad in Cincinnati to the point that it kind of feels like it's over already for the Bengals. They have looked so bad since the Joe Burrow injury. All the good vibes of we started the year 2-0. We've got a chance to make some noise. We can survive for a little bit until Burrow gets back. It sucks went down, but we got the buffer. We got the cushion by actually winning some September games. All out the window when they get absolutely trounced in the last 2 weeks. They narrowly beat the Browns. Browns have been a scrappy team. The Jags win actually looks pretty good. So what did beat the Jags this year? You get trounced by Minnesota, and you get blown out of the water by Denver. The Bengals have been outscored by a ridiculous margin, 76-13, over the last 2 weeks. How do you have success with that? By the way, doesn't show signs of getting better. Lions, Packers, Steelers the next 3 weeks. They're going to be underdogs in all 3 of those games. And then you're going to be 2-5 if you don't pull off an upset. And then, do you sell? Do you try to get a different quarterback in there? What exactly is the plan for Cincinnati? It puts them in a really awkward spot when you're trying to win games now, and you don't feel very close to doing so. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. It is simple to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is the only op that offers stacks, so you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So, passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns for a quarterback, for example. You can also follow other Prize Pick players on the app. Copy the lineups with one simple click. A friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like. Not just football, baseball Prize Picks are available with about to begin the Yankees-Red Sox matchup, but also all of the games, all football games, and more. Go download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Next up on our rumors and news updates, how about a potential Riq Woolen trade for the Seattle Seahawks? Ian Rappaport's getting this one going on Sunday morning, but haven't a chance to talk about it since then. Says, with Devin Witherspoon back, guys like Darian Kendrick surprising, and Josh Jobe being an impact player, teams are monitoring Pro Bowl quarterback Riq Woolen as a possible trade target by the deadline. Sources tell the insiders Woolen's playing time has diminished, and in a contract year, teams believe he could be available. And oftentimes when this type of reporting comes out, it makes me wonder if it's the team that's leaking it to try to get some buzz going on a player that they think has some value. But you don't want to leak where, shopping him around. You want to leak it in a different way to get teams to call you. Has been a bit of a disappointing season so far for Woolen. He hasn't been as impactful as I think the Seahawks are hoping for, but the height, weight, speed, athletic ability combo is certainly intriguing. Probably hasn't been as good since his 2022 campaign. I think the biggest element that could complicate things here is going to be the contract size of what is he looking for? Are you paying him a big-time contract? Like, how does that all blend and balance out and figure out as things move forward? But I do think there is value that's not just a dumping of a player from Seattle's side. So predictions. Will the Seahawks trade away Riq Woolen? T for trade, K for keep. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I want to spend some time now on Jaxson Dart after what is by no means taking anything away from him, a big-time win. You win your first game as a rookie QB, you should certainly be excited. 13 of 20 through the air for 111 yards. Maybe most impactfully, 10 carries, 54 yards, 2 total turnovers. Did a solid job of keeping the football away from the enemy. And in the end, beating the Chargers, a team that not many people thought were going to lose to the Giants in Week 4. I've got the good and the bad I want to discuss here because the numbers don't necessarily pop off the screen at you. But I want you guys to grade Jaxson Dart against the Chargers. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. A, B, C, D, or F. Positively, Jaxson Dart was what the Giants needed. They needed the energy. They needed the mobility, I think, too. And that's a big deal for New York. I do think a lot more growth is still needed out of Dart. I do worry about him taking so many hits. I don't want to battering ram my quarterback in there just to save the head coach's job. The priority should be Jaxson Dart's development. I do think, unfortunately, he's going to be hamstrung a little bit because he doesn't have Malik Neighbors anymore. And now that receiving core doesn't feel nearly as good, to the point that I almost wonder if you should try to go get somebody, even if it's a short-term option, to help develop the QB. That's the priority here. The offense worked. It did a good job against a very good Chargers defense, but I don't really know how sustainable this is. You throw a handful of passes beyond 10 yards all game. 3 incompletions, or I got 4, the one up top there. Your completed air yards is not exactly high. So, no, the Chargers are a good defense. I think he did miss some throws. You're hoping for a higher completion percentage. The Chargers defense is a very good defense. I do want to emphasize that. And there's plenty of reason for hope and excitement. But, and I've cautioned this before, I don't want to anoint young quarterbacks after a game or even a season. I want to see it be consistent and be sustained. How many times have we seen the young QB in their first start look great? It only gets harder from here. The more tape that opposing teams get on you, the more they're going to be able to adjust. What makes a successful quarterback in the NFL is not how they fare in their first game or their 11th game. How do you fare in your 100th game? When teams continue to throw different things at you, once they figure out how you want to operate with plan A, how good are you in plan B? Can you go back and forth? What adjustments can you make? Can your coaching staff make? So a lot of reason to be excited if you are the Giants, but I think a lot more reason of like, you got to see some more stuff develop here too. If you guys want even more news and rumors, you've come to the right spot. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Now, with the emergence of Russell Wilson, why not a trade? I think this does make a lot of sense. If you can find the partner, that I certainly believe is the biggest question mark out there. Ian Rappaport reports that Russell Wilson is expected to be a trade candidate this year. A quarterback-needy team could come calling. I would almost maybe have more interest in Jameis Winston, depending on what I was looking for. Russell Wilson, the Giants were right to bench him. He looked great against the Cowboys. I think I could throw for 150 yards against the Cowboys right now. That's how low the bar is. But he didn't look very good against the Commanders. He was really bad against the Chiefs. Like, to throw the ball away essentially on fourth down, you can't do that. It's been a lot of different organizations, Denver, Pittsburgh, New York, that's like, this isn't working, we're out. So my question is this. Does a QB-needy team emerge? The Bengals stand out as one potential franchise because Jake Browning hasn't played very well. But are they going to do that or no? Are they actually going to be in the quarterback market? I'm not so sure that they should be, at least not for Wilson. Winston might make more sense and be more fun so you can actually keep your receivers happy. Wilson's pretty cheap, though. He's owed $2 million in base salary. There's a bunch of incentives for Russell Wilson as well, that playing time, wins, playoffs, that you're happy to pay those if they end up getting there. So we'll certainly keep our eyes on Russell Wilson. Finally, the injury news of the day, reportedly per the Baltimore Sun, Lamar Jackson set to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a hamstring injury, which would be a significant blow for a Ravens team currently struggling at 1-3. Even if it is a winnable AFC North, the Texans and Rams, the next two games, I think what Baltimore is probably hoping for is to split those. You enter the bye 2-4. That's not great, but the season's not over yet. You enter the bye at 1-5, and you almost have to win out, it feels like, or you got room for maybe 1 or 2 more losses the rest of the way. So Baltimore needs competent play out of Cooper Rush, who plays a very different style of football than Lamar Jackson. My suspicion, the Ravens will try to establish the run with Derrick Henry, probably going to do more under center work with him, and probably try to get Zay Flowers some cheap, easy touches as well. But this one is going to be one to monitor. It is mailbag time here on NFL Daily. Get your questions in via hashtag NFL or skip the line altogether via Super Chat. We only have a handful of questions right now here on NFL Daily. So I see D. White the Gamer. I see Chua in there. If you have questions, thoughts, ideas, whatever it is, get your questions in, your thoughts, your comments, etc. via hashtag NFL or skip the line altogether via Super Chat. I'll give you guys some time to get your questions in. I know there's always a natural latency delay between me talking and going through on YouTube. So get your questions in via hashtag NFL. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. I am excited to see how the Ravens offense looks because I am going to have to play Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry in fantasy this week. I got buys. I got no other options. So we'll see how it is. See, Ruthless Monk's question in there. Appreciate that, my friend. Keep the comments, the questions, the ideas, whatever it is coming here on the show. So use hashtag NFL or skip that line altogether via Super Chat. Appreciate everyone who comments and throws out your ideas. It's fun to have the back and forth here on NFL Daily. You all set there, Producer Aiden? Sweet. Let's dive in then to the mailbag. Before we get into today's NFL mailbag, if you enjoy when we do these, if you like having the kind of back and forth conversation, show it by liking today's video. Free, simple, easy to do. If you like our NFL mailbags, show it by liking today's video, please and thank you. From Chua, why does the head coach, I think she's talking about the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, keep making the players play when they are not healthy enough to play the game? Look, going back and watching Brock Purdy, it just felt like he wasn't quite right. And the toe injury was helping lead to some inability to drive on throws the way he needed to. He doesn't have a cannon for an arm already. He kind of has to be like a little bit more technically sound and perfect to make stuff happen. So look, I think desperation's a part of it. At times, sometimes you have to protect the player from themselves. I'm sure Brock Purdy said, I am good to play. I can play, coach. And then you get to the game and you go, damn, maybe he wasn't. And maybe they didn't challenge him enough in practice to really test it out there. So it's unfortunate when you're the Niners and you kind of get a bunch of re-injuries. Maybe there was some desperation in there. Short week, we'll see what the Niners end up doing on Thursday Night Football. I filmed this before Thursday Night Football, obviously. But got it. Maybe the long break coming off that game will be beneficial there too. From Ruthless Monk, what's the running back trade market looking like? The Chiefs need one bad. Fantastic question, Ruthless Monk. I'll kind of go a little bit long-winded here, but I think it's a good conversation to have. I think you start with, the bad teams. Okay, who's willing to shop players and make stuff happen? So the Jets, the Braylon Allen injury could complicate things. I wouldn't be shocked if they shopped Breece Hall. I'd pushed back on a preseason trade, but trade deadline, if they've got 1 or 2 wins, makes quite a bit of sense. I don't think the Browns could trade Jerome Ford, but who really wants him? I actually don't think Miami's going to shop Devon Achane that much, but Jalen Wright could be available. The Raiders aren't going to do anything. Maybe Carolina could shop a Rico Dowdle or Chuba Hubbard if they decide, but they did kind of recently invest in those players. I'd be a little bit surprised if Alvin Kamara ended up being a trade option. I don't know if the Saints are going to do that with just their whole organizational structure. I think Ramondre Stevenson could be a name down in New England just because they've got other options that they could try to move on and deal from there. The Jags have already made the Tank Bigsby trades. I think they're probably out of the conversation on that front. The one kind of dark horse name that I'm willing to throw out there is hey, maybe, what about Tony Pollard with the Tennessee Titans? Pollard is a little bit highly paid. Tennessee's bad, but do they think he helps protect Cam Ward enough that they want to keep him? I think Breece Hall was probably the biggest name that I could see getting shopped, though. From Dang, how about a Devon Achane trade? Funny timing. I guess we got a lot of back conversations today. Look, I get why other fan bases have interest. That's logical to me of go get the really explosive good back in Miami. The issue Miami faces in general is they are bad. Sorry, they are. They are expensive, spent a lot of big money, and they're leveraged. And they're old. By leveraged, I mean they've kind of restructured contracts to save cap space short term at the cost of it long term, which is what you do when you're trying to be a contender, but they're not really a contender right now. So I think Devon Achane is young enough. Even though he plays running back, you're probably better off keeping him. The problem is they keep spending picks on backs. They drafted Ollie Gordon, who's been a good power back. Jalen Wright is not playing because he's the lesser version of Devon Achane. Maybe Jalen Wright makes sense as a trade partner or trade candidate. Who wins the game first? J for the Jets, S for the Saints, T for the Titans. They are the 3-0-4 teams. Get those predictions for me in the comments section of today's show. J, S, or T. Who ends up winning a game first this NFL season? From D. White the Gamer. Do you believe the Week 5 game against the Eagles is a prove-it game for the Broncos? I believe so. It's a needed parameter as to how good our team is against the top teams in the NFL. I'm inclined to agree, and that doesn't mean that if the Broncos don't win, I'm going to write them off and say, oh, they're a bad team, they're terrible, whatever. But this is like the one game over the next couple games for the Broncos to help us feel like, okay, are they going to have a letdown season potentially from last year, or are they on the rise? Remember, they beat the Titans, a game they should have won against Indy. They lose on a penalty off a field goal, essentially, and they lose by 3 against Chargers. They've lost 2 games by a combined 4 points. After this tough road game against Philadelphia, it's Jets, Giants, Cowboys, Texans, Raiders. Like, Denver could very well go on a hot streak here and put themselves into AFC West contention again before it gets a little bit more challenging at times down the stretch. I do think this is I think barometer game or is a good one to figure out just how good this Broncos team is actually going to be. Today's show is made possible by Omaha Steaks. They offer unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. During their early Black Friday sale, you get 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites at omahasteaks.com. And you guys get an extra $35 off with promo code NFL Daily at checkout. The Black Friday sale was the early Black Friday, so perfect time to shop the best deals, plus orders placed by 6 p.m. Eastern Time ship the same day. Omaha Steaks is America's original butcher since 1917. Save big with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their early Black Friday sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code NFL Daily at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's an extra 50% off and $35 off by using promo code NFL Daily at checkout. Link and the promo code will be in the comments section and today's show. From Mel, should the Saints trade Cam Jordan? I think you basically let Cam Jordan decide that. Cam Jordan has been, and maybe even Alvin Kamara gets to decide that too, where if you have a month to go, if you go on a hot streak, you can change your mind. But if you're sitting there with 1 or 2 wins at the deadline, and Cam Jordan says, I want to stay a Saint forever, then you don't trade him. And you say, because you're not going to get more than a day 3 pick back for him, right? You're not really going to command a ton of interest in an older edge rusher clearly on the decline, right? But if he says, I want to go ring chase somewhere, like, I don't know, San Francisco, maybe, given their needs at edge, then, like, you probably do right by him there. That's probably where you should be at for a player of Jordan's caliber. So name a player who you think gets dealt between now and the NFL trade deadline. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Name a player who you think ends up getting dealt. Could be offense, could be defense. Keep it, or try to, I should say. Keep it realistic. Let me know. From Bo, if the Titans keep stinking, should they trade Tony Pollard? I want to see how Tajay Spears looks coming off of the injury, but if you're just in asset acquisition mode, I do think you'd be able to get something back for Tony Pollard. Now, I'll also say the goal of what the Titans organization should be right now is to make life perfect, or at least easier, perfect's probably out of the realm of possibilities right now, for Cam Ward. Like, their goal should be, how do we maximize Cam Ward? Future assets help you do that. How do you develop him? But if Tony Pollard is traded and Tajay Spears isn't good enough, or he stays hurt or whatever, Julius Chestnut cannot be a lead back for an NFL franchise. That's not at all a viable option. Cleo Mullings is banged up as well right now. So I think you should consider it. But if the answer is the 5th round pick or Tony Pollard, you think Pollard helps Cam Ward more, stick with Cam Ward. Name a team who you think should have a fire sale. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let me know what team you think should have a fire sale. Let's go to 00 Sports' question, and there are definitely other ones for Chris. So let's go to that. We'll splice this in, and then we'll come back to the subread there, Aiden. Get your questions in via hashtag NFL. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. From 00 Sports, what's the chance the Browns trade Myles Garrett, and what's his value? Simply put, the chance is zero. The Cleveland Browns are not going to trade Myles Garrett. If they were going to do that, it would have been in the offseason, not after they paid him a record-setting amount of money. That doesn't make any sense at all for the Browns trade. To put it in perspective from a contractual viewpoint, let me make sure I get this pulled up here and it's correct. Well, lagging on me. Browns just paid him massive money. They would lose money if they were to try to trade away Myles Garrett right now. They would incur an $87 million cap hit by trading away Myles Garrett. They technically actually save $3 million in change this year, but in exchange for losing almost $40 in cap space next year. It's a non-starter. There is a negative % chance it ends up happening. Now, if you want your questions featured on our mailbags, make sure you guys are subscribed so you never miss a video. Hit that sub button so if you haven't already, you don't miss anything here on the show. From Chad, can the Bengals fix their O-line during the season or have to wait till the draft? We could go sign somebody too. I think the realistic ability to fix your offensive line during the season isn't there. There aren't free agents. The good teams aren't trading away competent offensive linemen because they don't have anybody. Like the good teams aren't trading them. The bad teams probably don't have good offensive linemen, and the ones they have, they aren't trading. I don't think it's feasible. Like, this is your offensive line. You can shuffle out players on the roster. You can try other young guys, but those are the options at this time. Like, those are the options that the Bengals have. Without them, it's just not going to work. Who we got on Thursday Night Football? 4 for the 49ers, R for the Rams. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Who do you think will win? 4 for the 49ers, R for the Rams. Sip my water as the votes come in. Then we'll get to our final segment of today's show. 4 for the Niners, R for the Rams. Aiden, who are you going with? I think that's the right answer. It'll be interesting, but I do think that's the right answer there. So Chua's going with the Rams against their Niners. It's interesting. So get your votes in. 4 for the 49ers, R for the Rams. Coming up on today's show, we're going to react to the latest CBS Sports mock draft. They're known for some wild and wacky ones. I think this is actually a bit more measured than some of their other mock drafts. If you want me to drop a new NFL mock draft, show it by typing me in the comments section. Of note, CBS Sports is basing this draft order on the Super Bowl odds. Reverse odds, obviously, so don't blame me or them, frankly. LaNorris Sellers is the pick here out of South Carolina by the Saints. The upside is tantalizing. I still need to see some more consistency. This is one of those you have to let the year play out before you decide one way or the other. But if you want the potential top 5 pick at quarterback, like our top 5 QB to take it early, Sellers is probably the best option for now, but it is very, very risky. Reuben Bain, the edge rusher out of Miami. I know Carolina drafted back-to-back edges in last year's draft on day 2, but paying for Bain is not a bad draft strategy right now because he has been dominant for the Miami Hurricanes. Was banged up in his sophomore year. Awesome as a freshman. Even better now as a junior. He might very well be the best player in this year's class, early version. Peter Woods and Clemson in general haven't lived up to expectations so far. But I do think a scenario where he gets back to form, Clemson has some more success, he gets more opportunities to rush passer, blah, 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 and has a big-time year down the stretch. Tennessee moves on from Jeffrey Simmons. I think all of those are very possible. I love Caleb Downs. I think he's an awesome player, an impact safety, does so many things good, oftentimes around the box too, by the way. But I don't get it for the Giants. A safety is not really that big of a need right now for the Giants. They spent a fairly early pick on Tyler Reuben out of Minnesota not that long ago, and then they also went ahead and spent some money on Javon Holland. So I think a safety, this is the issue with safety early. Is there the fit and the need? Because the Giants, if they're picking 4, were not good. Is safety the right path? I don't know. I think a lot of mock drafts are just going to put Francis Mauigoa or insert offensive tackle here to the Raiders. He's a right tackle starter. The Raiders need that. I suspect Vegas fans would be on board. Dante Moore is the pick here at number 6, the quarterback out of Oregon to the Cleveland Browns. If the Browns are drafting early, probably means Dylan Gabriel, ironically, who Dante Moore replaced at Oregon, and Shedeur Sanders may not have emerged as viable options. It's obviously very early in the 2025 campaign. There's no guarantee Dante Moore even turns pro after this season. But I have been impressed by him. The guy we saw at UCLA struggled. Maybe wasn't ready to be a starter. I think did the mature thing and said, I'm going to go learn for a year at Oregon, and has had a massive breakout season. He's young. He does not have to go pro, but in a quarterback class that I think is at least a little bit shaky right now, the play of Dante Moore has put him in potential first-round pick conversation depending on how the rest of the year plays out. But so far, so good for the talented Oregon quarterback. Who do you think is the number 1 QB in the 2026 NFL Draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Number 7 is John Mateer. I actually do like the fit with the Jets because he can run, and that's what Justin Fields is doing a lot of. 7 is a little bit rich for me. There is some Baker Mayfield to his game, but he's not as accurate as Baker Mayfield is. And the thumb injury, we'll see if that limits his draft stock. He could always go back to school too, by the way. I think he is an electric college quarterback. I still need to see some in-structure stuff as a passer before I anoint him a top 10 pick. Keldrick Falk out of Auburn to the Bengals here. Man, you had some giant humans in Shamar Stewart and Keldrick Falk on the outside there. CBS put him at defensive tackle. I think he's an edge. I think that's going to be his best fit for him. That also might have been just DT because college stats are weird sometimes. It'd be another first-round pick at defensive end, but Myles Murphy has been a pretty big disappointment. Garrett Nussmeier, number 9, to the Dolphins here out of LSU. The comp remains Tony Romo. When he does some good, actual quarterbacking things that you don't always see at the college level. Sometimes it's all the very good college offense, Lane Kiffin stuff of hey, you're just doing RPOs and deep shots and screens and bubbles and you're not really doing regular readout stuff. Nussmeier does do that. There are also times it's dude, what are you doing? How do you didn't see him there? You threw it right to him. There's just that 15% of bad Tony Romo that creeps into his game. Patriots get a wide receiver 1 in Jordan Tyson at Arizona State. He's off to a really good year. People aren't maybe watching because it's Arizona State and it's late night games and they fell out of the top 25 for a little bit. But I think he's off to a dynamic season. More so than I think this. It's not the same comparison. They're two very different players and doesn't carry the off-the-field concerns. I kind of get vibes of Mike Evans, Johnny Manziel with Jordan Tyson and Sam Levitt, where Levitt and Manziel kind of run around, throw it up there, guys, and Tyson just makes the play for you. Xavier Harris has had an awesome season for Ole Miss. He is a massive human being listed at 6'8", 330 pounds. I will say, if the Cowboys are keeping Kenny Clark and they already paid Osa Odigizua, I don't know if another defensive tackle fits. Now, if they cut Kenny Clark, different conversation, that's a possibility. I wonder if just go get an edge instead is maybe a bigger need for the Dallas Cowboys. Today's show is made possible by Omaha Steaks. From everyday dinners and effortless entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steak delivers the world's best steak experience. During their early Black Friday sale, get 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites at omahasteaks.com. Plus, you get an extra $35 off with promo code NFL Daily at checkout. Terms apply, and see site for details. They don't just carry burger or steak, it's burgers, chicken, pork, seafood, even delectable desserts as well. Unrivaled quality and variety, every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. Save big with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their early Black Friday sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code NFL Daily at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. It's 50% off and an extra $35 off at omahasteaks.com with promo code NFLDaily at checkout. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. Number 12, the Bears take Quincy Rhodes. Look, he is off to a very impressive start for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I am a little bit hesitant to anoint him so quickly, but I do think, maybe if this was like pick 29, I'd be more like, I like a sneaky pick, but top 15 is, for now, a little bit rich for me. I love what I've seen from Mansour Delane this year. I liked him at Virginia Tech. I like him even more at LSU. Rams need cornerback help in a pretty big way. This pick, by the way, the Atlanta Falcons, part of that draft day trade. I don't know if he ends up being the first cornerback taken, but he's high on my list. I love the player in Jeremiah Love. He's awesome. Explosive, big play generator. I think has shown more as a passer this year than he had previously. That the ability was there, but the usage wasn't. I just don't know if the Cardinals are going to take a running back. They lost James Conner to injury, but they spent the second on Trey Benson. I think they got bigger issues they should probably try to address. Houston takes Spencer Fano out of Utah here. Look, if you put any offensive lineman within reason to Houston, I'm going to say, yep, sure, do it, go for it. It's still a huge problem. They tried to address it. It didn't really work. I think Fano's been a bit better than Caleb Lomu so far this year. Plug him in. Boom. I like what I've seen from Fernando Mendoza. I mentioned how Garrett Nussmeier does some real quarterbacking stuff. Mendoza does too. At times he'll maybe get a little bit too aggressive, but he does offer enough mobility. He's not a great athlete, but he can move. He can buy some time. I think the size is going to appeal to teams. He's bigger. He's much bigger than Garrett Nussmeier is. Mendoza is 6'5", 225 listed size. Nuss is 6'1", 205. I do think height matters for a quarterback. Maybe more so even than the weight also matters because you got to be able to have that body armor at times. I love what I've seen from Mendoza. I want to see how he plays out the rest of the season. He is the film nerds quarterback fan. How many quarterbacks do you think end up going in round 1 of the 2026 NFL Draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. David Bailey, the Texas Tech edge rusher. I think he's a situational pass rusher. I don't know how good he is against the run, which makes him a little bit early as a 17th ranked player. I also don't know if the Vikings are going to pick an edge over a corner, but maybe they just want to go pure speed and pass rush and worry about the cornerback stuff later. But a very fun prospect, the Stanford transfer there. Carnell Tate, the Ohio State wide receiver. He's had some big-time plays and big-time moments. The last couple of games that I watched have been the most challenging opponents for Ohio State. You pair him up with Jaxson Smith-Njigba. It's kind of fun, I guess, for Seattle. I like Torrey Horton, though, a decent amount. I wonder if Seattle would invest in maybe defensive replacements or maybe they go back to the offensive line well. Isaiah World has immense talent. He's got great size. The flashes are good. The consistency maybe hasn't been as good. And I do worry about the developmental tackle going that early. I don't think he's been bad, but in an offense that can often protect the offensive linemen, I haven't seen dominance yet from Isaiah World. So it's a little bit early for me, but it is early. He might take that next step forward. Anthony Hill Jr. is next up here. That's to the Denver Broncos. I don't actually know if they need another linebacker. There are moments in coverage that I go, okay, is that actually what we're looking for? He's been a much better tackler this year, by the way. He's kind of improved that area. I think the athletic traits are really good. I know not everyone agrees with me there, but I think as a kind of modern-day linebacker, weak side linebacker type, I think there is some potential to be really good. Caden Proctor, you're gonna see him continue to slide down mock drafts unless he suddenly takes a step forward as a pass protector. Frankly, I don't think he's been that good. I've actually been pretty disappointed in the play of Caden Proctor this year. The near fat guy touchdown was electric. Don't get me wrong, but I am getting Evan Neal vibes here. I thought he played well against Georgia, but Wisconsin, Florida State, or not, there's too many inconsistencies. There's too many times he's getting beat in pass protection. The Colts have done a good job of developing offensive linemen. I guess they could maybe replace Braden Smith down the line. I don't actually know if offensive line is their biggest need, though, frankly. Cassius House had a good year pass rusher-wise for the Aggies. The Bucks, they could potentially be in the market there. I'm fine with that one. I actually love the fit of Kenyon Sadiq with the Commanders. That's super fun. I have been impressed by him. I've seen flashes of better blocking out of Sadiq this year as well, part of a very potent Oregon offense. I think that's replacing Zach Ertz long-term with Sadiq. I know they've invested some other picks in tight ends too. I think that's fun. The Niners are, again, super banged up at wide receiver, which kind of makes mock drafting tricky because, like, okay, you're going to draft another receiver. What is the actual status of Brandon Ayuk long term? Ricky Pearsall's hurt again. Jawan Jennings is going to be a free agent soon. Kendrick Bourne, MVS, Demarcus Robinson, Sky Moore, stopgap options. Receiver is kind of a sneaky under the radar need, and Mekhi Lemon's been really good for USC this year. If you guys enjoy watching NFL mock drafts, come to the right spot. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. Hit that sub button right now. Dominique Orange, a.k.a. Big Citrus, one of the best nicknames in college football, to the Chargers. They did draft Jamari Caldwell in the 3rd round last year, but you've got, he play one of those guys at defensive end if you wanted to, like that with that 3-4 front and add some more meat in the middle. I think that makes some sense after losing Poona Ford. Colton Hood, the other Volunteers cornerback, who has been really good this year, by the way, to the LA Rams. The Rams need a corner. I don't know if they double dip at corner. I don't know if that would actually be the path they end up pursuing, but he has been very good this year in the absence of Jermod McCoy. Vincent Anthony Jr., I know not many of us are watching Duke football games because a lot of us have lives. I don't. But he's been really good this year for Duke. And another edge, given the way that some of the recent picks and investments for the Chiefs have gone at edge outside of George Karlaftis. I actually don't hate that idea. Frankly, I've been really disappointed. Like, we'll see how Ashton Gelati plays, 3rd-round pick this year. Charles Omeni, who's a veteran, but you're not really getting anything right now from Felix Udike Yazami. He's on IR again. That one might chalk that up to kind of a sunk cost there. I would be slightly surprised if the Lions went back-to-back first-round picks at defensive tackle, although I do like Christian Miller a lot. My issue is I haven't seen the best pass rush yet, but I do think that should come along as the year continues to go. But there actually just might not be a Georgia player in round 1 on defense. They had a tough time against Alabama. They got better the second half, but they kind of struggled down the stretch there. Avion Terrell out of Clemson, the corner who Clemson in general has struggled this year. This is A.J. Terrell's brother. I don't think Avion's been that bad. He's forced a bunch of incompletions, did allow the 1 touchdown there. But cornerback help seems like something the Cowboys are going to have to go get. This would be a classic Ravens pick. T.J. Parker falls to them. I will say, look, Clemson and in general, and I'm so shocked by it because they brought back everybody from a college football playoff team. T.J. Parker has not been as good this year. He has clearly taken a step back. I wonder if that's a team issue than an individual player issue, but he hasn't been as productive. He's regressed this year. The Ravens will probably fix him somehow. All right, LSU's Aaron Anderson on today's show here to the Eagles. I am kind of curious what ends up happening with the Tigers, or with the Eagles' wide receiving core. Anderson's undersized, but he is athletic. He's productive. The weird thing for LSU, and it's still early enough in the year, I don't really know who's going to end up emerging as the true wide receiver 1 when the season's over. Aaron Anderson leads them in catches. Barian Browning leads them in yards. Xavier Thomas leads them in touchdowns. Nick Anderson also tied for touchdowns. They've got a lot of different options. It's been a pretty quiet year from Chris Hilton, too. I think Anderson's probably the front runner. I don't know if round 1 for a slightly more undersized wide receiver is what the Eagles should do, but they do like to spend the premium picks on these spots: receiver, tackle, edge, etc. The Bills at number 32, Jermod McCoy, hasn't played this year. I thought he was awesome in 2024. I think if the Bills could get him with that 32nd pick, that'd be a bit of a steal, which he might not last that long in the end. So grade that NFL mock draft from CBS Sports. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Some rapid fire other draft prospects to watch. No Drew Aller in the mock draft. Look, him throwing the pick against Oregon late was just wildly predictable. I'm sorry. Denzel Boston out of Washington's having a solid season. Chris Bell's got that height, weight, speed combination everybody loves. Caleb Lomu, the other Utah tackle. I think Trevor Goosby's an underrated player. I think he's going to have a strong season here. Caleb Banks out of Florida is hurt, but he had some fans. Same with LT Overton, Denai Dennis Sutton, Mateo Uiagalelei. Those guys could easily sneak into round one. I think Arvell Reese is actually the biggest miss on here. I have been so impressed by him this season. He's gone from Sonny Styles is linebacker 1 on OSU to, Arvell Reese is trending towards being a first-round pick if he turns pro. Before we go, grade Jaxson Dart against the Chargers. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. A, B, C, D, or F. And if you haven't already, as I see Eric Simmons, Guzman typing in their Bs, we will be live for every single show, or throughout the week here. Not every single show. We'll be live every week. Have our Red Zone stuff, have our watch party stuff for Thursday Night Football, Monday Night Football, etc. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. YouTube.com/chatsportstv.